8 seconds of pure and raw mayhem, 8 seconds of man and beast battling for dominance that was the last 8 seconds of 25-year-old Mason Lowe. In 118 years of professional bull riding at the National Western Stock Show in Denver, no one had ever died until 2019. Death wasn't unheard of in rodeo in general. At least 21 deaths have been recorded since 1989, but nothing could have prepared fans of the sport for what happened that Tuesday in January. 2019 saw the tragic death of bull rider Mason Lowe. But how did he get into the sport in the first place? On September 12, 1993, Mason's parents, Stacy Lowe and Melissa Reed, moved from Springfield, Missouri to Exeter. The town had less than 800 people and was known as the Cowboy Corner because rodeo was the most popular sport there. Mason's dad and cousin both rodeoed, so it's safe to say that he was born into it. He grew up riding on his family farm. As a toddler, he was interested in bull riding. It was said that when he was 3, he started riding the milk cows on his family's farm. He said, "We used to go out there and feed him, and my dad would stick me on the back of them and let me ride them. I just thought it was fun." It was so much fun that he quickly moved on to steers. Not to take anything away from the passion of the young Mason, but there weren't many other things to do in the small town, so he didn't have many chances to become a professional football player, baseball player, or basketball player, and kids who were taught to focus on their greatest strength. Mason knew what his greatest strength was because he had been doing it since he was 3 years old. He got interested in bull riding as a child and named Chris Shivers as his hero. Shivers became a professional bull rider in 1997 and won the Professional Bull Riders World Championship in 2000-2003. As you might expect, Mason started competing in junior rodeos. He was so good that he skipped high school rodeos to become an amateur bull rider. By the time he was 15, Mason was competing all over the Midwest. It was clear that Mason had moved so quickly because of how skilled he was. He often said that he regretted not competing in high school, but he also thought that the amateur competitions had made him more ready for professional tours. He turned professional at age 18 and quickly rose through the ranks as one of the sport's best. A report said Mason was a bull rider who couldn't have fun unless he was pushing himself to the limit. He went after the craziest bulls he could find and competed in his first professional bull riders event in Arkansas in 2011. He later became a full-time rider on the Professional Bull Riders highest level tour in 2015 and qualified for 3 consecutive Professional Bull Riders World Finals. After his first season, he was ranked number 164 among World Bull Riders, and Mason admitted he was having a good time. He had his best year on tour, saying, "It's pretty awesome. It's been kind of a dream, so I've been kind of rolling with it." In the summer of this year, he hurt his wrist, which was just a minor problem. At the start of his second season, he was seen as one of the talented up-and-coming riders who could compete with the veteran riders, and they weren't wrong. Mason couldn't compete over the winter because he was in California to avoid injury, but he later came back in February 2017 at the sprint. At this point, he was ranked 12th in the world. He then went back to Springfield for the annual Professional Bull Riders competition, which is close to his home state of Missouri. By the end of that competition, Mason was ranked 14th at the Iron Cowboy competition at the At-T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Mason was the second rider to complete a ride on Smooth Operator in competition, earning him a 9,075-point score that put him in 9th place in the world rankings. However, in early June, he got hurt while completing a ride, which, despite limping for a while, it didn't stop him from competing, and shockingly, he won his next ride with another 8-second stay in the 2-round competition at the 14th J.W. Hart Professional Bull Riders Challenge. This put him up to 11th in the world, and by the end of the season, he had earned more than $100,000 in winnings. But by the start of the next season, Mason had fallen even further and was now 14th on the board. It was time to get his AM back. He was very focused on getting to the top while also making sure he did everything right for his family. He said, "A lot of riders say riding close to home is the hardest, but I've always thought riding near home is a good place to ride." Comments like that show how much he loved the sport and his family. Mason missed the chance to make it 4 by not qualifying in 2018, so when January 2019 came around, it was time to get back on track. Scott and Mason set their sights on the National Western Stock Show in Denver, which was the Professional Bull Riders Velocity Tour event and took place at the Denver Coliseum. The National Western Stock Show, also known as the Denver Western Stock Show, is an extravaganza that includes 30 rodeos, 11 horse shows, and many other attractions. A few miles from the center of Denver, the stock show opened people's eyes to Western tradition and the undeniable importance of agriculture and ranching. That's why every winter, over 700,000 people come from all over the city to see the show. It's almost like a pilgrimage for some since the first show in 1906. For more than 100 years, this event has been a place where generations of farmers and ranchers get together with old friends and learn about new ways to do things. Agriculture, ranching, and doing business year after year were the main activities, and the games and competitions were just a way to bring people together. That's why in the 113 years that the event's bull riding has been going on until January 15, 2019, there has never been a single death. The art of bull riding was all about those 8 seconds of pure chaos when the rider had to sit on about 1,500 pounds of raging muscle while holding the bull's rope with only one hand. Once the bull's shoulder breaks the gates plane and leaves the chute, the rider must stay on the bull and not use their free hand for support or hold on to anything. The timer runs until the rider's body touches the ground or their other hand touches the bull. If you can't stay for the full 8 seconds, you won't get any points to qualify. You have to be able to stay on the bull for the full 8 seconds, even though the bull will do almost everything you ask it to do. Everything possible to get you off its back, including how well you control the animal and how skilled you are. Mason came to the stock show ranked 18th in the world, and this drop in the rankings wasn't going to affect his performance in any way. He said, "I was taught that if you're hurting a little, just keep going at it, and hopefully it'll pain a way out." He also said that trying not to think and keeping his mind clear have been keys to his success throughout his career. He added that this state of mind was especially important when he was in the shack with the bull before the gate opened and the ride began. He said that his philosophy about the ride itself was that you can't really think about it while you're out there. The moment you start to think about what the bull is going to do next, you're a second too late. Mason's way of thinking was needed in a sport like bull riding, where the most important thing was those 8 seconds when it was time for the draws in Denver. He drew the bull named Hard Times despite its name. It's important to note that Hard Times wasn't a particularly mean or well-known bull, unlike some other famous bucking bulls like Bodacious or Bushwhacker Hard Times. Had been in more than 30 events without any injuries, so it was clear that this bull didn't mean to hurt riders. Of course, Hard Times was strong and athletic, weighing over a ton, and behaved like any other bucking bull in the arena. When the chute opened and they felt the weight of a person on their back, they had a natural urge to buck their riders off. Mason had done this dance many times and come out victorious and fist-pumping. Other times he had touched the ground before the 8-second mark and lost to the beast. In those moments, he bowed his head and thought about what he could do to beat the beast when another chance came up on this fateful Tuesday, 25. Mason, who was 5 years old at the time, put on his protective suit and got ready to. The crowd screamed as the best Hard Times jumped out and started kicking and bucking wildly, but Mason was focused and his gloved hand held the bull rope tightly. This wasn't his first rodeo, but every time a new match started, it was often the same raw emotion as the huge Hard Times continued to buck and jibe beneath him. Every second felt like an hour, and he and the bull were locked in a war, and the crowds couldn't help but get excited. They were so excited that they were almost screaming at Mason, and Hard Times didn't care if they were cheering or jeering. They were in a battle for dominance. As the second went on, Hard Times lurched violently with a mighty buck, and the pound of muscle sent Mason flying through the air. While Mason was in the air, he tried to reach out and grab a handful of fur, but his hand didn't feel anything because Hard Times was still bucking. Mason tried to stay on top, but he was pulled under the bull. Spear landed without protection right where the bull's hooves were coming down, and the animal's left hind hoof hit him in the chest. The crowd, which had been screaming at the top of their lungs, couldn't believe how quickly things had turned bad. Everyone was shocked. Mason got up and tried to walk, but he only got a few steps before his leg gave way, and he fell to the ground. Everyone started screaming in fear. This had never happened before. Paul Andrews, president and CEO of the National Western Stock Show, said, "Our entire rodeo family and every member of the stock show community is saddened by the death of bull rider Mason Lowe. Our hearts and thoughts are with the Lowe family, his fellow bull riders, and the entire Professional Bull Riders organization. Tonight, the National Western Stock Show and the Professional Bull Riders will hold a tribute in Mason's honor because the competition he was in was. All of the rights that were supposed to be finished the next day had special patches on them to honor Mason." Glenn explained that this was a sign of respect. "Our priorities are to Mason's family first as we support them following his tragic death, and then to his brothers in arms in Denver who are getting ready to soldier on, strap in, and compete tonight," he said. "It was truly a sad ending," Austin Shirley, one of Mason's friends, said about his late friend. "Hell, he was a cowboy's cowboy. He could rope ride and cover any bull. He never forgot where he came from when he made it big." Glenn added that bull riders know and understand how dangerous their sport is. They take the risks. After Mason's death, the Professional Bull Riders organization said that the accident hadn't led to any changes in safety for its riders. Riders say that the Western sport, which has been called the most dangerous 8 seconds in sports, is as safe as it can get, according to Professional Bull Riders spokesman Andrew Gangola. The organization looked into possible causes of the death. Even though safety measures were put in place after Mason's death, the company decided that the incident was unusual and didn't need to be changed. To honor Mason's memory, the professional bull riders have renamed their annual Premier Series event in St. Louis as the Mason Lowe Memorial and created the Mason Lowe Award, which is given to the rider with the highest single score during the regular season of the Unleash the Beast series. They have also started the Mason Lowe Memorial. There will be a scholarship program to help students who want to study rodeo, Western sports, or agriculture. Mason Lowe's death was tragic, and it is still a big deal in the world of professional bull riding. But his fellow riders and many people who loved him are still thankful that he lived the life he wanted to live to the fullest.